Welcome mathematicians to this video on 5-number summary. In today's video we'll be looking at the TI-30XB MultiView Texas Instrument Calculator. So we're looking at the 5-number summary from a collection of data. We can recap that the 5-number summary includes the minimum number, the first quartile, the median, also referred to as Q2, the second quartile, Q3, the third quartile, and the maximum value. So let's get into this one. A small maths class achieves the following percentage scores upon a statistics test. So here's our numbers, and they're in order from 32% at the lowest score in the class up to 89% for the highest score. We have two tasks for today's video. Number one, we want to calculate the 5-number summary for the class scores. And number two, we want to construct a box plot to represent the data from the 5-number summary. So first of all, task one, calculate the 5-number summary for the class scores. So to do this, we're going to use the TI-30XB MultiView emulator. Let's look at our data entry using the emulator. First of all, we have a data button here. We click that data button, and you can see at the moment there's already data stored in our statistics section. If we press our data button again, that gives us the chance to clear our line 1. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to clear that, press enter, and suddenly we've got nothing left in our first column. This is much like a spreadsheet. So let's enter in our data first of all. So our first value was 32. So we put in our 32 and press enter, and it moves down to the second point. Next one was 41, 48. I'm going to fast forward now our data entry and look at how we analyze this data shortly. Okay, I've entered in my 15 data points. Let's now look at how we analyze our data. So to get out of this mode, we press second mode, and that gets us back to a blank screen. We now press second data, and we come up with some options for statistical analysis. First is one variable statistics, and that's what we're looking at. We've just got one set of data, which is to do with scores. So I choose one and I press enter. And now we see here we've got all sorts of information. The data is found in line 1, and it's just one set of information, so that's fine. I can press down to the calculate. And when I press my calculate on enter, I'm given the following information. So first of all, the first bit of information here is the number of data points is 15. The mean value is 60.46 recurring. Then we move on to values such as our standard deviation, which we're not using at the moment. We finally hit the 5-number summary. So our minimum value for X was 32. Our first quartile was 50. Our median value was 60. Our third quartile was 70. And finally, our maximum value was 89. So the 5-number summary we found from our data was a minimum value of 32. First quartile was a score of 50%. The median score was 60. The third quartile was 70%, and the maximum score was 89. Task number 2 was to construct this data using a box plot. So here we have an axis or a scale ranging from 0 to 100%, and it's labeled scores in percentage. Here's our 5-number summary. Let's construct our box plot. So the first point that we wish to put on our box plot involves Q1, the first quartile, and Q3, the third quartile. And simply making a box. So our box starts at Q1, which is our score of 50%, and it finishes at Q3, which is a score of 70%. So there's our first box. Also, this represents what we call the interquartile range. It's the values between the two quartiles, Q1 and Q3. Next, we'll add in our median. Our median is also represented as Q2, whereby 50% of our data is found below the median and 50% of our data is found above the median. So our median is represented as a solid line within the box between Q1 and Q3. Our minimum value is 32, and that's represented with a vertical line, and then we join a horizontal line back to our box. Another title for the box plot is the box and whiskers plot, and the horizontal line represents the whisker of the box and whisker plot. And you can see our value here is representing 32 as a minimum score. Likewise, with the maximum of 89, we put a vertical line at 89, and we join that with a horizontal line back to the interquartile box. So there we have our box plot. It's shown on our scale from 0 to 100, scores in percentage. First point is the minimum. Our second point is Q1, the first quartile. Our third point is the median, also described as Q2, the second quartile. The third point is the third quartile, and the final point is the maximum. Let's examine our box plot a little further. First of all, between min and Q1, our minimum value in the first quartile represents the bottom 25% or quarter of data. Between Q1 and the median represents the second 25% or quarter of data. Between the median and Q3 represents the third 25% or quarter of data. And finally, between Q3 and maximum represents the top 25% or quarter of data. We can further analyze this and look between Q1 and Q3, our two quartiles. This is described as the interquartile range. It means between the two quartiles, Q1 and Q3. It represents the middle 50% or half of data. From the minimum to the median represents the bottom 50% of our data. And finally, between the median and the maximum represents the top 50% or half of our data. Thank you for watching this video. If you've learnt something about the 5-number summary using the TI-30XB MultiView calculator and indeed Boxplots, please like, share, comment and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.